Hey everybody, welcome to, what is it, part 4 now of my Beatle ranking video, and I appreciate everybody who has left comments, who have shared their list, and even the people who have taken me to task for my list. And no, my list is not going to be like yours. And you may rank certain songs higher than I do, or certain songs lower than you do. This is my own personal list, and I keep having to drive this point home because I get a sense from some of the comments that people are getting all bent out of shape and their feelings hurt, or they're just completely mystified why I have certain songs ranked lower. For instance, there's been a lot of love for the Beatles cover versions, which is great. You love the Beatles cover versions, that's fantastic. I am not trying to take anything away from your appreciation for the music. I'm just giving you my list. So it's not going to completely align with your list, but it's just the way that I rank my own personal favorites. So let's start off with where we at 124, and this is going to be the third of the Larry Williams cover, Bad Boy, by far my favorite out of the three. And it's interesting because this song was actually a song that they dashed off because Capitol needed another song for the Beatles 6 album. And so they sent the Beatles into the studio and said, we need you to come up with another song. So very quickly, and only a couple of takes, I think, it might have even been one take, they churned out Bad Boy, which it's an incredible John vocal. He's very animated in his delivery, and definitely he sells the song. So many cool, playful things that John interjects into this song. But it's a little too close to Dizzy Miss Lizzy in terms of the arrangement. So I can see why Bad Boy didn't get slotted onto, say, the Help album. Okay, 123, Obla Di Obla Da. Another what I consider kind of a children's type song. It's got a little bit of a reggae arrangement to it, which is also kind of interesting to see the progression of that on the White Album Deluxe box set. They have, and also the Anthology 3, they have alternate takes before it turned into kind of the reggae song that we get on the White Album. But I do like the song. I like it a lot. I think it's a fun tune. 122, All You Need Is Love. And yeah, I've got this ranked very low. It's one of the songs that I feel has just been overplayed. It's a little too much of a love anthem for me. I mean, I don't dislike the song again, but it's just not one of my favorites. It's not in my top 100, but it's still an enjoyable song for me to listen to. I love the arrangement on it. And all of the fanfare at the end, as it were. I like at the end where John reprises She Loves You. I think that is very cool. So yeah, 123. All right, 121, Think for Yourself by George Harrison. I love the fuzz bass on this particular song. It's got George lecturing like George was wont to do on some of his compositions. But it's a strong song by George. And you can tell by Rubber Soul, his songwriting is definitely taking a leap forward, as it would on Revolver. 120, I Want to Hold Your Hand. And is that sacrilege to have it outside of the top 100? I don't know. It's a fantastic song. I mean, it is a song that broke the Beatles in America. You would think I would have a little more respect or a little more reverence for the song, but it's just where I place it. Again, you know, the lyric, there's not much to the lyric. It's sort of a very juvenile, kind of a boy-girl relationship lyric. And it's catchy as all hell, absolutely. I understand why the song skyrocketed to number one. But after all these years later, there are just so many better Beatles compositions, at least to me, to my ears anyway. So this is where I'm putting I Want to Hold Your Hand. 119, Back to George, his only song from Sgt. Pepper. After he got 3 songs on Revolver, they cut him back down to size and says, you're only getting 1 song on Sgt. Pepper, Within You, Without You, a song that it took me a long time to really get into. I would always skip over that song when I would put on side 2 of Sgt. Pepper. I'd go right to When I'm 64. But over time, I've grown to appreciate the Indian music and the raga and what George was going for. I do not skip over this song anymore, and I actually find that I kind of enjoy it. So I'm putting that at 119. 118, going to the Let It Be album for One After 909, one of those fantastic songs that they sang and performed on the rooftop. It was a song that harkened back to their very early days, like by early, we're talking 1960, might have even been a little earlier. I know it was one of the first songs that they wrote together. And since they were waxing nostalgic during the Get Back sessions, they dug it up and they performed it. There's actually, on the Anthology 1, there's a version that they tried to record for the Beatles for Sale album with a completely different tempo and arrangement. I think that version's very cool, but the Let It Be version is the definitive one. 117, Nowhere Man, off of Rubber Soul, or Yesterday and Today. Yeah, it's a cool John song. I like the opening a cappella. I like the song. I do. It's just not in my top 100. And it's one of the few songs that they actually performed live off Rubber Soul. So it does have that going for it. But yeah, I like it. It's a cool song. Any song from here on forward is a great song. It's just, I got to start making some hard decisions from this point forward, and that's where Nowhere Man fits. Number 116, Mean Mr. Mustard. And yes, I'm breaking the Abbey Road medley apart here. Mean Mr. Mustard, I feel, is kind of the least substantial of the three songs. Mean Mr. Mustard, Polythene Pam, She Came In Through the Bathroom Window, but I love it nonetheless. During the Get Back sessions, it was actually its own standalone song. And then I think John kind of realized, there's not enough here to make a whole song out of this tune. And so they ended up cobbling the three fragments of songs together for the Abbey Road medley. But I love Mean Mr. Mustard. It's so cool. It's got an irreverent John lyric, and I think he sings it well, and the performance of it is very cool. Okay, 115, Across the Universe, and this is a song that I used to think was very dull and boring. I didn't get it. Ja Guru Deva, what the hell does that mean? So Across the Universe is a song that it took me a long time to really get into. I was not a huge fan of it, but over time, it started to rise on my list. It's not my favorite John. I don't know if they necessarily call it a ballad, but not my favorite John acoustic sort of slower song by any means, but I do like the song more, and I like the Let It Be version more than I like the version that was given to the World Wildlife Foundation, and that also found its way onto Past Masters Volume 2. 114, It's Only Love. And this is a song that John really hated. I won't say he hated it, but in later years and interviews, he would kind of crap on this song, and he would say, well, it wasn't a very good song. I don't think he regarded it very highly. I happen to like it a lot. I think the lyric is pretty cool. I think he performs it well, and it fits into that whole kind of folk rock style that was becoming kind of a trend in 1965, and it appears on the U.S. Rubber Soul album, but obviously not the U.K. one. It was on the Help album in the U.K., but I think it's still a very cool song. Number 113, some acid rock. Jimi Hendrix, I presume, inspired acid rock from George Harrison with It's All Too Much. Probably my favorite song on the Yellow Submarine soundtrack. George just tears into it. I love that wailing feedback at the beginning of the song, and then you've got that organ that comes in, and then the song just rocks out. Great fuzz guitar. One of the heaviest songs the Beatles ever recorded outside of Revolution, and I love this song to death. I wish there were a version with the extra verse that appears in the film, but still a very cool song. 112, Hello, Goodbye. It was a great single with I Am the Walrus on the flip side, but obviously I Am the Walrus I regard much higher than I do Hello Goodbye. It's just kind of a lyric by Paul where he wanted to do a song about opposites. You say yes, I say no. You say stop, I say go. So kind of polar opposites, miscommunication in a relationship if you want to try and go a little bit deeper. Definitely a catchy song. I remember loving this as a kid. Back then, it was on the Blue album. That was really my first, one of my first introductions into the Beatles. Before I even owned a Beatle record, I think it was in music class in elementary school. One of the teachers brought out the Blue album and was playing songs off it. And that totally blew my mind. So I definitely love Hello Goodbye. 111, I'll Cry Instead. Love how it just kind of zips along and then it's over. It's almost like John's in a hurry to get this song over with. It's got a very propulsive kind of a rhythm. And yeah, it does have a little bit of a country flavor to it. I hear a little bit of R&B in it, but what do I know? Anyway, so 111, I'll Cry Instead. 110, For You Blue on Let It Be or Get Back. Love that one too. I love John's slide guitar on it. George giving us a little bit of country blues here, as it were. Maybe not one of my favorites off the Let It Be album, but still, you got to give George his due. He was still, he was holding his own against the songwriting partnership of Lennon and McCartney. Number 109, Baby, You're a Rich Man from Magical Mystery Tour. Always loved that one. It was the B-side of All You Need Is Love, if I'm remembering right. And yeah, it's cool. I forget what that instrument is that they have at the beginning of it, but I love the piano on it. It's always been a favorite of mine from 1967. It's a cool little song. Okay, number 108, Every Little Thing, another stellar song from Beatles for Sale, which I have said already. I love Beatles for Sale, and I love this song too. This is one of the few songs that my dad would admit liking from the Beatles, so I've always had a soft spot for this song. Anyway, but yeah, it's a cool love song when the Beatles were under pressure to keep churning them out, get an album out. And I think the results speak for themselves. I'm a huge fan of Every Little Thing. 107, I Call Your Name, a song that the Mamas and the Papas, Cass Elliot did a great vocal on her cover of it. But I've always loved this. This is classic early Beatles. And it was only on the Long Tall Sally EP in the UK, but we got it on the Beatles' second album with a bit of reverb here in the US. And I've always loved that. I've loved John's vocal. I love the chorus. I love just John's singing style. That early John vocal was so infectious. And I Call Your Name is an absolutely brilliant piece of songwriting. Okay, number 106. One of Brian Wilson's favorite songs on Rubber Soul, You Won't See Me. He always loved the rise and descend on the chorus of the You Won't See Me, You Won't See Me, He loved that, at least according to his bio. He singled out that song in particular as one of his favorites. So who am I to argue with Brian Wilson? But yeah, it's great. Is it a little bit too long? Yeah, it's one of the longer songs on Rubber Soul. You always think they're going to like wind it up, wrap it up, and then they go like another verse longer. It's a Paul song directed at Jane Asher. None of the songs it seems that Paul wrote for Jane Asher were very complimentary. He always seems to be bitching about how she's not loving him enough, or she's not giving him his due, or she wants to pursue her own career. All that stuff. Paul's kind of airing a bit of his dirty laundry there. But You Won't See Me is a great song. 105, I'm real sorry I couldn't slot this into my top 100 because it is a great song. It's another song off the Yellow Submarine soundtrack. Hey Bulldog. I first heard this on the Rock and Roll Music Volume 2 budget release that I had back in the day. I love it, the part at the end where they're barking and kind of clowning around, but it is a great John vocal, that chorus. You can talk to me, you can talk to me, you can talk to me. If you're lonely, you can talk to me. I love that whole part of it. I love that searing, blistering guitar from George Harrison. Everything about the song works. Damn it, it should have been on the White Album, I'm telling you. But anyway, they stuck it on Yellow Submarine. Apparently they didn't think too highly of it, or they didn't want to make room for it somewhere else. So it really deserved better than that. All right, 104, Sexy Sadie. Love that piano intro, and it inspired Radiohead on Karma Police, which also has a very similar piano intro, but love everything about it. It was written, originally the lyric was Maharishi. It was John kind of calling out Maharishi for being a fraud, or at least that's what he thought. Do I think necessarily Maharishi was a fraud? No, but John he had bitter feelings towards the Maharishi. Magic Alex got into his ear and was telling him things because Magic Alex was jealous about the hold that Maharishi had over the Beatles, and Magic Alex wanted them to pay attention to him, and so he started feeding them some misinformation about the Maharishi, as it were. So John got pissed off and he wrote this song, and George and Ringo told him to cool out. You cannot call the song Maharishi and have a song lambasting the Maharishi in a lyric. So John changed it to Sexy Sadie, and the rest is history, but it's still a very cool song. 103, I Me Mine, the other George song from the Let It Be sessions, which was a very abbreviated, it was only like a minute and a half originally when the Beatles recorded it, and Phil Spector for Let It Be stretched it out to a little over 2 minutes. I forget how he did it. Some studio trickery. He added a verse, or he doubled the chorus. But nonetheless, I love it. I love that organ, that ominous organ intro. I love the guitar on it. The I, me, mine. 102, the title song, Help. John regretted in later years that this turned into a piece of, pop rock. And he actually recorded a demo in 1971, just a much slower, more subdued version of Help. I think he maybe intended to go back and re-record it in a more serious, kind of contemplative style, but he never got around to it, or he thought better of it. But anyway, Help is such an exuberant title song for the Help movie. I love it. I really do. I love that it's kind of got that acoustic, not much in the way of electric guitar here. But yeah, it's John's cry for help. And as he said in interviews, he meant it at the time. It was not just a song to stick in like they wrote Hard Day's Night specifically for the movie. I think John had help kicking around because he was suffering withdrawal from fame, and it was not everything that it was cracked up to be. And so John was really kind of crying out for help. So very cool song. Number 101, No Reply. I really wanted to get this into my top 100 because it's such an interesting way to kick off the Beatles for Sale album. Because on Please Please Me, you had the heavy rocker, the up-tempo track, I Saw Her Standing There. On With the Beatles, you had It Won't Be Long, another up-tempo song. On Hard Day's Night, obviously, you had the explosive up-tempo A Hard Day's Night. And then for Beatles for Sale, you get this quiet little song about infidelity that John sings. But his vocal on this song is so cool. And John never quite sounded like this again. And I absolutely love it. I love hearing the way that it progressed. Some of those Anthology 1 outtakes of the song I think are very cool. But I've always just absolutely loved this song. I think it was based on Silhouettes. It might have been a Dean Martin song or something. But anyway, very, very cool John track, and one of my favorites off Beatles for Sale. And then 100, Here, There, and Everywhere, inspired by the Beach Boys, their answer to Pet Sounds, or at least some of the beautiful harmonies. And Paul just writes a tender love ballad with those beautiful 3-part harmonies that we hadn't heard since This Boy. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous song off Revolver. And now we're into the top 100, but I'm going to end this video. Holy crap, it ran too long. I apologize, but I'll see you next time with getting into my top 100.